Alright, welcome to the fourth and final video of our introduction into RHINO. So today we're going to go over using Osnaps and control points here, using the Gumball tool here, and using multiple layers with our layer tools here. So the first one we're going to do is our Osnaps tool. So for that I'm going to go to our kind of oblong circle that we drew a few lessons back. I'm going to turn on our control points. So as you can see, we have our different control points that we can now manipulate. I'm going to go ahead and just work in the top view here. I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the two I think are the most useful tools with Osnaps here. So first I'm going to draw another curve over top of this one, just really quickly and easily. Done. So we have our curve sitting over top of this, and you can see it basically just didn't even recognize that it was drawing over top of a curve, and it effortlessly just drew a curve over top of it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to show you our near Osnaps tool. I'm going to draw another curve. Start here, I'm going to go down, down, and now as you can see, as I get close, my other curve, it goes darker, and then we get near pop up on it. So basically what this does is it allows me to draw my curve and just automatically select a point nearest to where my snap tool is. So right there, go down, pops up again, near there, near there, done. So this is really helpful when you're drawing different curves and you want them to overlap perfectly. You want it to be in a certain spot. The tool will just highlight near, and you can select exactly where you want it to be. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to show you another variation. So I'm going to turn near off, and I'm going to turn point on. So what this tool is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to draw our second curve, and basically as we get close to control points that we had before, it's just going to automatically want to go to them. So right here I'm getting pretty close, and then it automatically drops onto that point. Close, drops onto that point. So this is really helpful when we're doing stuff like drawing necks. We're going to draw basically our control points in free space, and then we're going to kind of draw different curves around our control points. So this tool is going to be really helpful for stuff like that. So that is Osnaps and the near and point tools. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the control points off. Zoom out. I'm going to go into our multiple viewport view. And now we're going to go over our Gumball tool. So I'm going to use our perspective view here. So the Gumball tool, turn it on, kind of gets dark gray there. Basically, when we select something with it on, we get all these different options here. If we turn it off, we select it, it just goes yellow. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit more on this cube of ours. Turn the Gumball tool on. So we have a couple different options. So the first one is the blue one here. So when we highlight that, it says distance to move in Z direction. So as we know, in perspective view, we can see down here, the Z direction is straight up. So we can either type in millimeters, or we could manually move it by selecting the blue arrow and moving it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in 10 millimeters. So as you can see, it moved it 10 millimeters up, and now it's kind of just floating in free space. I'm going to Command Z, undo that. I'm going to do the same thing by just moving up the blue arrow. So as you can see here, when I have the blue arrow selected, I can move it left and right, but it will only go up or down. That is the only option I have, just up or down. Just gonna bring that back down. So that is our Z direction. So let's do our X direction. Same thing. I'm going to move this one. I can see on here X is positive to the right, negative to the left. So I'm going to say I want to move this one -10, and it should move to the left. There we go. So I can do the same thing. I can just select the red one here. I can move it in only the left or right direction. The green one, sure enough, I look down here, green is pointed to the right, Y is pointed to the right. Allow me to move it in the Y direction. And then we have a couple other cool tools here. So we have this blue arc. You can see I can rotate it quickly and easily. Command Z that. So if I select that, it'll give me degrees that I can move it around. So say I want to move it 25 degrees, rotate it at 25 degrees to the right. I can rotate it around the x-axis. Say I want to do 25 degrees that way. Rotate it at 25 degrees. And now, as you can see, it changed the whole axis of the object. So if I want to move it in the Z direction, it now no longer goes straight up and down. It goes straight up and down along that 25-degree axis that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and undo those. I'll show you the last one here, which is the y-axis. I'm going to show you this one manually. So you can see I can rotate it there. So say that's where I want it. So that's the Gumball tool. The best thing about that, we can do all those things manually just by moving our object. But this makes it really precise and it doesn't move it in any other direction. So I can do the same things with that tool off. I'm going to go ahead and go into our front view here. So you can see I can select this. And I can move it up and down, but I can also move it left and right. And we don't always want to do that. Sometimes we just want to move it straight up, and we don't have to worry about moving it in any other direction. So that's the Gumball tool. It's really effective and useful when we're creating guitars. And finally, we're going to go over creating multiple layers. So our layers are right here. So this is our default layer. I'm just going to call this shapes. So these are all the shapes we've created in our first couple lessons. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go onto layer 1, and I'm going to call this new shapes. Sorry. So I know I'm working on this because our blue tool is selected there. I can turn our background shapes on or off. So if I turn that off, they're gone or they're hidden. Turn it back on, there they are. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to draw a couple random shapes. Throughout here, just so we can kind of see. And let's do a cone underneath our little tip thing there. So as you can see, some of our shapes are intersecting each other, some are just free in space. So these two are intersecting here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into perspective view and turn off this top layer. So you can see this allows us to work on these shapes. So I could do something like add a fillet to one of these curves, or I could scale one of these cones here. And I don't have to worry about messing with any of the other shapes. Turn them back on. Even though they're overlapping, I can still see them all, the whole shape. I can go ahead and I can turn off our new shapes. That's really a really useful tool just to organize your drawings. So generally when you're doing any drawing, kind of as you move up the drawing, making it more and more complex, you want to just create multiple layers of everything, and you want to name them very appropriately. So if we're doing a guitar, and say this is the shape of our guitar here, it's a pretty strange looking guitar, I know, but we'd want to call that, if we drew this, we'd want to call that outline of guitar. And then if we extruded it up and made it into 3 dimensions, we'd want to call that 3-dimensional guitar body. As we start adding different pockets into it and stuff, we'd want to name everything appropriately. We'd want to have the neck be separate, stuff like that. So that was kind of the finishing up of our 4-part series on RHINO 5. We kind of went over everything. We went over our top control bar here. We went over our shortcuts. We went over views in space, kind of our different looks here, layers, Gumball, Osnaps. So that's a very brief introduction to RHINO, but kind of went over the tools we're going to use most often while creating our guitars.